The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination, other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media, is strictly prohibited.
Welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today we will again be answering listener emails, and we have a question from Paul, who lives in Boston, Massachusetts. Paul asks, after 100 days or so in office, Trump has pissed off our allies, started a disastrous trade war with just about everyone. Prices are going up. Doge is firing people and then needing to rehire them because they are incompetent. Social services are at risk for all Americans, and we have a measles epidemic. But hey, Trump won a golf tournament at one of his clubs while ditching the services for 4 service members killed in action. Is any of this enough to break the Trump cult? What more must happen to get Trumpers' heads out of their asses? That is an excellent question.
I remember
Wish we had an answer.
I remember seeing a cartoon in the first Trump administration. It was like a couple sitting, and around them there's like ruins of buildings, and obviously the whole world had blown up. And the guy is saying to his wife, "Well, the Trump second administration, this should be much better." And here we are. It's so much worse.
Now, who does this come from? I remember Boston.
Paul from Boston.
Paul from Boston. Paul, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, cultism is something that's very difficult to break. Just ask Scientologists. It is an extremely difficult thing to break. I saw a great, as Scott was saying, he saw a great cartoon. I saw a commentary that said, in a lot of ways, Trump is like Jim Jones, except Trump would charge them for the Kool-Aid. Yeah. I don't know. I can't say. I know some people that I think are very, very, very intelligent that are friends of mine that I just cannot wrap my head around what they see or what they feel is working so well, because as of right now, I can't see it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to change people's minds. There's something going on that is not. We've never seen anything like it except in cults, right? So yeah, this is a cult, and I don't think that there's anything, and there's no logic. Certainly, there's no facts that you're going to see changes the mind of somebody who's going to double down every time something goes bad because they need to protect their investment. It's sort of a stubborn human nature thing, I suppose.
Or say that what you just said went bad really didn't go bad. It's kind of like saying 1 + 1 = chair. Mm-hmm. And then getting people to actually believe that. That's really what it comes down to. It goes beyond, that old saying, you never argue with idiots or crazy people are idiots. This goes beyond that a person can look at facts straight before them and simply not see them, or see them differently, or how did Kellyanne Conway say, alternate facts? And a lot of people joked about that when she said that during the first Trump term, and that truly has become a thing. And it's become a thing that people are really. The only thing that I could say could happen is when it really truly starts to impact these people directly. When ICE comes to their house and takes them out because they got the wrong tattoo, even though they're a white guy or a white woman, when they lose their job and then they go to apply for food stamps and it's not there. It's going to take these kinds of tragedy. It's almost like being an alcoholic in my mind. You've got to hit your rock bottom. And the problem is that everybody has their own rock bottom that they've got to hit before they will say, hey, you know what? This isn't working for me. And that's why this is such a hard question. It's a good question. I will say this, a great question. But the fact is that We are such a diverse group of people in the United States that rock bottom, that area, that point you've got to get to where you look and say, you know what, everything I thought was wrong, and I've got to change something. That's going to be different for everybody. That is going to be totally different. Like I say, it may be a loss of a job. It may be attempting to apply for food stamps when you can't get it. It may be, ICE coming to your house. It may be, your daughter got pregnant, needs an abortion, and you can't get it. There's so many different things that this could manifest itself as in the complexity of people's lives, and everybody has their own kryptonite where they're going to say, yeah, I can't take this anymore. So there really is no definitive answer other than when the people reach their rock bottom.
Yeah, I agree. And some people will never reach their rock bottom. They'll find someone else to blame it on. The same as some people still believed in Hitler and blamed whoever else, anybody else but Hitler, and still felt that Hitler was right and that he just didn't have enough time, that his generals didn't do right by him, that the German people were too weak. I mean, at the very end, when Hitler obviously had lost the war and the Russians were in Berlin, Hitler blamed the German people for not being worthy of him. And that's why they lost. I mean, so there will be people, Mark, as you say, it's like being an alcoholic or a drug addict. You either reach that point where it's real for you, and that is the time when you recognize that you were in fact being duped the entire time, or you find someone else to blame because you cannot let go of the fantasy of the supreme being in whom you have placed all your trust. And that person cannot possibly have been unworthy of everything that you have invested. And even when that person has devastated your life, you will still do everything to protect that because you simply can't be honest to yourself. So I don't know how bad it will get. I really don't. I'm afraid it's going to be much worse. And it may not get better. That's what troubles me. If Trump thinks that autarky is the way for this country to go, we have the lovely example of North Korea, with whom very few nations will trade because they've essentially isolated themselves from the world. And we can see how well the people of North Korea are doing under their dictator, Kim Jong-un. I mean, the Canadians see what Trump is doing as an economic war. I imagine the Prime Minister of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, sees what Trump is doing. And she does have a PhD in economics. So she does understand what she's doing and what Trump is doing. I don't see her bending. I really don't. I see people, I mean, Trump says, oh, China's the enemy, China's the enemy. He's pushing everybody toward China to make deals with China and to make deals with one another and to shut the United States out and to make that permanent. And they'll get along just fine without us. And the Chinese also hold American dollars. If we no longer hold suzerainty, then we don't get to run a deficit either in our economy. And what happens with that if that should happen, I guess the whole country crashes. I mean, I really don't know what happens at that point. So Scott, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, just to clean up a couple of things. Carney has the PhD in economics. The new Prime Minister of Canada.
They both do.
Claudia Scheinbaum's PhD is in physics. She was
physics?
Yeah.
Oh, I
yeah,
thought
she's
this was
a
in
scientist.
economics.
No, but
in
she
physics. Thank you for correcting me.
yeah. So, but here's the thing, and you kind of soft pedaling this, so I'm going to go hard at it, and you're very kind not to be specific, but I'm going to be less kind. The Nazis, Hitler, blamed the Jews for everything, and the Jews became obviously suffered tremendously because of it. In his meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu the other day, they were taking questions from reporters, and he was asked about Netanyahu was asked about his plan to get the 59 Israeli hostages still being held in Gaza by Hamas out, and Trump kind of jumped in, or maybe the question was asked of him, and he went on something of a bizarre rant where he said, I said to them, was there any sign of love? Did they show any signs of like help or liking you? Did they wink? Did they give you a piece of bread extra? Did they give you a meal on the side? Like, what happened in Germany? And he went on to say that people would try and help people that were in unbelievable distress, suggesting that the German people were known for their generosity, or the Nazis were known for their generosity towards Jews in Europe at that time. And then he said that the hostages told them about Hamas and how hateful they were, but seemed to be claiming that the Holocaust was like an act of kindness or something. It's hard to know what exactly he meant by what he was saying, but he was saying that the Nazis treated the Jews better, I guess, than Hamas was treating the hostages, which is, which probably speaks to his mindset about Nazis more than it does about anything else.
Yep.
And it was a really strange and disturbing exchange of ideas, to say the least. So there's that. He's on top of everything else, he's delusional and dotard and all that kind of stuff.
Well, he's also setting himself up. Yeah, and I know that the Nazis blamed the Jews for everything that was there.
I know you know it. I think you just didn't want to specifically say it.
Oh no, I hadn't. My focus was on after the war, and after everything was done, and after they had lost the Second World War, that when it should have been obvious to anybody with a brain cell to break in half and rub the two pieces together, that Hitler was 100% wrong. And because people were brought through, Germans were brought through the concentration camps, and they saw what was done, and there was no hiding from that. And they couldn't say, even if they'd said, well, we didn't know while it was happening, even though I don't know if that was true or not. Maybe they didn't want to know. They certainly saw afterward what was done. And yet some of them still lived in this delusional world where Hitler was right and the Jews were bad, and they were in the right, and Germany was great and had been wronged and whatnot. Just to make an analogy for what I think is going to happen in this country, for people who cannot come to terms with having put their faith in this Breton, who's the head of the executive branch. I had wanted to say that Trump is still he's like a mule with or a donkey really with Palestine, with Gaza, with the land. It's great real estate and America should own it, and that whole thing. And and he's not joking. And the problem, if anybody, we have to remember Osama bin Laden and his having given up his Saudi citizenship because the Saudis allowed American soldiers, the infidel, onto sacred land to help guard, with Saudi permission, to help guard, I don't know, oil or whatever it was. I don't remember exactly, but that offended bin Laden to the extent that he gave up his Saudi citizenship. And to think that, people are going to, in the area there, are going to allow Palestinians to be swept off their land and sent as refugees to wherever and scattered all over the place, and have Americans, Trump, taking over that land and turning it into Trump world, or whatever Trump is going to call it. And it's going to be great and wonderful. And everybody there is going to be, all the wealthy, and it's going to be a playground or something like that. And the people there are going to be delighted to have infidels on that land. I mean, that is delusional on a serious level. And Trump is still talking about it, and he seems absolutely serious, like he's talking about buying a piece of land in New York State or some other state where, people can buy land and nobody thinks twice about it. That's not how it works.
Yeah, it's certainly unlikely to work. I mean, whatever Trump's delusion about setting up the Riviera on Gaza is obviously a ridiculous idea. I do believe he's serious about it, because I don't think
he
that
is. That's the problem.
Right. But the to ask a group of people who've been fighting for something for 100 years just to walk away so you could build a hotel there instead is just slightly abnormal, isn't it? It's just insanity.
Oh, it is. But people, I don't know what, if his base thinks it's great.
I don't think
everybody.
I honestly, I really don't. Like, I mean, it's not like anybody ever thought of just like kicking them off the land altogether before it was a solution. I mean, famously there has been ethnic cleansing in that region, and the Israelis ethnically cleansed people out of their territory, and they were ethnically cleansed out of Arab countries. And at one time in our history as human beings, ethnic cleansing was something that people did, especially after World War II. There was a lot of ethnic cleansing going on around the world, and probably this is something that should have been addressed back then, but obviously it wasn't. And it's been 100 years or so of conflict that probably didn't need to exist. But certainly the idea that somebody's going to come in and say, we're just going to use this land for casinos, or to try to build a new Las Vegas or the Riviera or whatever it is you want to compare it to, is an idiotic idea.
Oh,
and I don't see how anybody could possibly get behind that.
Oh, someone will. I'm afraid that Americans, or whoever, I mean, Trump is stupid enough, and some of his backers are dumb enough to do something as brain dead as this.
As we've said before on this podcast, it worked so well for Reagan when he decided to put U.S. troops into Beirut to police that situation.
Yeah, and we haven't learned anything.
Yeah, well, we don't learn anything because we don't actually teach our actual history, so we don't learn history.
Exactly, and it's not getting any better either. Look at the alteration. Slavery was good, and the removal of genuine teaching, teachers training and funding from public schools, and alteration of history, and efforts to force universities to stop teaching what was true and real, and monitoring what at university level. And those are among the first things to go, of course, in an authoritarian country.
So there is somebody who took it seriously. The defense minister of Israel, Mr. Katz, liked Trump's idea and was fully behind it. And even Trump sort of like shrugged it off and said, "Well, it was an idea I had. I don't know how it's going to work out." Yeah, it's freaking insane.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or a comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening!